So let's see what is asynchronous JavaScript. So first we're gonna see what is synchronous code. In a synchronous code, for example, in a 2-line synchronous program, line 2 cannot start before line 1 is executed and has finished. An example of the real life of this is going to be the supermarket line. The supermarket line is going to be one person at the time, and the person that is on the back is going to wait until the rest of the persons are dispatched. So now let's see what is asynchronous code. In asynchronous programming, line 2 can be executed at the same time than line 1 and also can finish first. The time execution will depend on how complex is the task. In a real-world example is a restaurant. In a restaurant, there are 30, 40, 100 persons eating at the same time. If 2 persons order something from the menu at the same time, and for example, one just orders 1 glass of water, while the other orders the most complex thing on the menu, the person who asks for the glass of water is going to be attended first than the person who asks for the most complex thing on the menu. Similar is asynchronous programming. In JavaScript, you can use async to create asynchronous functions. For example, you can get the sales from a REST API. You can also get the clients. If you have 1 million sales and you have only 10 clients, get clients is going to execute and finish first than the get sales function. In JavaScript, most of the time, when you create asynchronous code, it's going to be when you are consuming APIs or REST APIs. You can create asynchronous code with JavaScript using XML HTTP request and the Fetch API. jQuery is another example of a library with this functionality, especially when you are using Ajax. And in JavaScript, you can also create asynchronous code with the following functions: callbacks, promises, and async await. So from here, we're gonna start working with asynchronous JavaScript. In the next video, we're gonna see what are callbacks. Then we're gonna start working with promises. So we're gonna see what are the callbacks. And we're gonna open again the learning.js file. In this case, I'm gonna open this index. And in the last project, we changed this to app ES6. We're gonna return this as app.js. And I'm gonna remove the contents. Of course, as I said earlier, I recommend that you save all the codes for the future, for future reference. So I'm gonna resize this window, and so this one, and I'm gonna close this. I'm gonna close this. We're gonna add something like this. Open the console, and I'm gonna add this in the bottom. So here we're gonna start working with callbacks. Callbacks are known as the cornerstone of asynchronous programming in JavaScript. And actually, we already have written a lot of callbacks in this course. A callback is as simple as a function inside another function. So let's see what are callbacks. So we're gonna create an array. We're gonna call this one cities, and we're gonna pass, for example, London, New York, Madrid, and we're gonna add Paris, and we're gonna add Berlin. So we have a list of cities right here, and we're gonna use a for each statement to access the individual values. So this is, we're gonna add cities for each, and for each is a function, and you can see normally we pass this function again. So this is going to be the callback because this is a function inside this other function. So basically that's a callback. So you can see that this function doesn't have a name, so these are known as inline callbacks. So this is going to be a callback that the function that is inside doesn't have a name. So we're gonna finish this. We're gonna city right here, and we're gonna console log city. So this is going to print the individual values for this array. So basically this is a callback. This function inside these other functions. And when the function doesn't have a name, is inline callbacks. You can also write the callbacks using a function declaration. Callback with function declaration. And it could be like this: function callback, and then you pass the city and console log this city. And it's going to be the for each like this: cities that for each, and then you pass the name of the function. So I'm gonna comment this, save this, and you can see it's going to be the same result because we have for each, which is a function, and then we have another function. So basically it's a function inside another function. That's going to be a callback. And you can see that this function is, or this code is calling this function, but this doesn't require the parentheses. That's going to be really important. So we're gonna create another example with callbacks. We're gonna create another more advanced example. Let's say that we have some countries. So we have a country list. We have something like France. We have something like Spain. We have Portugal. Then we have Australia, England, and Ireland. So let's say that we have this list of countries. Then we're gonna write a function that is going to simulate that we are downloading this list from a server. So we're gonna display the countries after 1 second. So we're gonna call this function display countries. It's going to be like this. Then we're gonna create a set timeout. Set timeout. This is going to be a function. Also the set timeout, you can see the function is set timeout, and we have this function. So this is also a callback. So after 1 second, we're gonna execute this function, the body of this function. We're gonna create something like let HTML is going to be empty. Then we're going to add the countries that for each. Here we're going to have another callback, and we're gonna pass country right here. So this is going to print HTML is going to be plus equal, so we can concatenate from the previous iteration. And right here I'm going to print the country like this. So finally we're gonna print this into the HTML. We're gonna add something like document.body inner HTML equals to the HTML. So we need to execute this function. So we're gonna print the countries. So we're gonna call the function display countries, save this, and you can see this is going to delay this function 1 second, and then it's going to print the results. So let's say that this is a list of clients. So you start working, then you download the list of the latest client, and you can see when I reload, let's say that this delay is the time that takes to download the client list. But let's say that we have finished downloading this and a new client is added. So at that moment, that client won't be in the list because the list has already downloaded. So we're gonna create a function that is going to be executed after this function. So we're gonna call this function new country. Maybe if you are working with clients, this could be also new client. So this one is going to take 2 parameters. It's going to be the name of the country, and it's going to be the callback function. So I'm gonna call this as the callback. So this is going to be the callback function that is going to run. And we're gonna set timeout again, function. Now this is going to delay 2 seconds. So this function is going to run after 1 second. It's going to download this list of countries. Then after 2 seconds, we're gonna insert a new country. At that time, this list is going to be already here. So we're gonna add the new country. Add the new country. and we have the array countries, and we're gonna push to add that country into the array of countries. Then we're gonna execute the callback. And the callback basically is going to be this function. So we're gonna pass this callback right here. We need to open the parentheses. So this function is going to insert a new country into the array of countries, and then it's going to call this function again, and it's going to refresh the output. So we need to add this country. Add a new country, and let's say that we add a new country. The function is called a new country. You can see it takes 2 parameters, so we're gonna add new country. It takes 2 parameters, so we're gonna add the country Germany, and then the callback function. The callback function is going to be this display countries, so it's going to be like this. Now we can save this, and we're gonna save this, and this list is going to print after 1 second. Then after 2 seconds, the new country is going to be added. It's going to insert Germany into the array, but then it's going to execute this function again, and it's going to refresh this list of countries. So save this. You can see after 1 second, the list is there. After 2 seconds, Germany is added into the array, and the callback is called. The callback function is display countries, so basically this is going to execute this code again, but at this time it's going to add Germany into the array. That's why we have Germany. So basically this is going to refresh the output in the HTML when the new country is added. And that's where callback functions are really helpful. So in the next video, we're gonna see what are promises. Again, this is going to be one of the nice and newest features in modern JavaScript. So let's continue working and learning more about asynchronous JavaScript in the next video. So let's see what are promises in JavaScript. The promise object represents when a function or a task is completed or also has failed of an asynchronous operation and its resulting value. So we're gonna create an example using promises. Promises are going to be really important because in the next chapter in the next video we're gonna introduce a fetch API, which will require that we understand promises. So let's create this example. We're gonna create a new promise object. I'm gonna create a const variable. We're gonna call this one apply discount, and it's going to be equals to a new promise. So this is going to create the promise object. So this is going to have a function. If you remember, this is going to be a callback. So basically this function is going to require a resolve and a reject parameters. If you remember, I said that promises represent when a function is completed or has failed. So normally the resolve, we're gonna add the comment right here. Resolve is going to execute when the function is successful, and reject when the function or the task has failed. By the way, this parentheses, I'm gonna cut this, should be right here on the end. So this is going to be a new promise. If you console log this apply discount like this, you can see that we have this promise. It says pending because we haven't done anything with this promise, but you can see this is a promise. So we're gonna create a new variable right here. We're gonna call this one const discount, and we're gonna set this value to true. Right here I'm gonna add if discount, so we're gonna check the value of this. This is going to be true. In this case, I'm gonna add resolve, because resolve is going to be when the function is successful. So we're gonna add resolve, and we're gonna add discount, apply it, something like this, something really simple. In the else statement, that means that this discount is false, so it's going to be reject. So we're gonna add reject right here, and we're gonna add discount fail, something like that. Now we have this resolve and we have this reject. If you save this, you can see that it says promise and it says resolve, and it says discount applied. So normally when you see something like this, it's because you are missing something. We have the value right here, but we need to access this value. You can see it says promise value. In order to access this, I'm going to add this apply discount. And you need to add the following code. You need to add dot then, and then this is going to be a function, and it's going to have a result. So from here you can console log this result, and this result is going to be basically this value, but you need to access this using dot then. So remember, if you have a code like this that says promise resolve, maybe it can say also pending or some other, but it says promise, you need to add dot then. That's going to be really important. So we're gonna save this, and you can see that we have discount applied, so we access this. I'm gonna remove this. So you can see we have discount applied. So this is the result that we have here. If you set this to false, we need to execute the reject. This is going to be executed when we resolve the promise. If we save this, you can see that we don't have anything. So right here I'm going to add, in order to access the reject value, this discount fail, we need to use a keyword called catch. And catch is going to get the error. Always is going to get the error from a promise. So we're going to add console.log, and we're going to pass the result. The result is going to be this text that we have here. So save this, and now you can see we have discount failed. So normally the result is going to be attached to this dot then to access the value. When you have reject, it's going to be an error. You have to use catch to grab that error. So that's going to be really, really important. Resolve is going to be, the value is going to be accessed using dot then, and reject, the value is going to be accessed using dot catch. So this is a basic example of using promises, but they are going to be really helpful, because in the next video we're going to see how to work with the fetch API.